does make people want to ask questions, and as soon as people start asking questions, they're open to learning. Our first speaker is Zora Ahmed, and she's a Pakistani woman who is a law student at Fordham University. She will be working this summer with the ACLU on legal cases related to drone warfare.
I'll be speaking about the drone strikes in Pakistan and how the drone program fits into the very fraught relationship between the US and Pakistan, and some of the serious legal questions that are raised by the program. So just to backtrack a little bit, how did we end up bombing Pakistan? So the US first started conducting covert strikes in Pakistan starting in 2004, but we really started to hear about them in 2008 and 2009 when the number of strikes dramatically increased under Obama. And Pakistan has always been a country of concern for the US after 9/11, but I think you can point to the 2008 presidential election campaign in one debate, for example, the only thing that McCain and Obama agreed upon was that it was Iran and Pakistan which posed the two greatest threats to US national security. And it's in this context that we see the word, the AFPAC war emerge. And it's a recognition that by the US, by Washington, that success in Afghanistan was tied to negotiating a particular relationship with Pakistan, and therefore justified military action inside of Pakistan. Most of what we know about the war in Pakistan is secondhand, and for a variety of reasons. First of all the strikes have been taking place in the federally administered tribal areas, which is in the northwest of Pakistan. Historically has been very isolated, has been subject to its own criminal law, own courts, and has been sort of under a different control since Pakistan was formed. And to this day, it's very hard to gain access to the places that are being bombed. And the only way that advocates have been able to access victims victims and survivors is that they have come via bus into Islamabad. It's been very difficult for journalists to actually gain access to this part of the country. On the US side, it's been impossible to gain any sort of information about why the US thinks it's okay to be bombing Pakistan, what the justifications are, what intelligence is relying upon. As Nick mentioned, the ACLU and some other organizations have been suing the US government because it hasn't complied with its obligation under the Freedom of Information Act, which requires the government to disclose information when someone makes a request. And the US government essentially says that we cannot disclose the justifications for this war or who we're targeting because it would compromise national security interests. That's all fine and good, but at the same time you have every day in the New York Times you read about a drone strike. And Eric Holder goes on record and talks about, in very broad and general terms, on what basis the US targets people. So there's this, the secrecy is used very selectively. And essentially the US is keeping the drone program secret because it can. And that basically precludes any of us from really knowing what's going on. And the little information that we do have suggests that the civilian casualties are much higher than what the mainstream media would have us, would tell us. For example, 1st of 2011, Foreign Policy, which runs its own separate tally of drone casualties, states that 4 to 6 militants died in a particular strike in North Waziristan. But on the ground,